Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Munch&Learn session. Today, we have Victoria Russell with me. Victoria, thanks for joining in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And today's conversation and Munch&Learn is going to be about effective marketing on a small budget. Well, what does that mean? A lot of businesses, from where I see it, and I know that small businesses, they do have a very small budget, right? And they have to spread that across all the different pillars of the organization. So one of the key things is how much do they allocate onto marketing budget versus all the other sides of it. So before we go ahead, Victoria, tell us something about VGR Business Support.
We're an accountancy and administration practice based in Oxford, so we provide bookkeeping, payroll and VA services to clients across the UK and further afield. And we've been trading since 2016.
And how would you, when it comes to marketing, tell me more about your marketing side of it.
So I have a background in graphic design and I do all my graphics myself and use a platform called Postoplan, which is similar to Hootsuite, but it allows me to schedule up to 1,000 posts across multiple platforms a month.
All right, okay. And so when it comes to marketing, where all do you market your business?
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, most of the social media platforms. But LinkedIn I would say is more sort of my target market.
Okay, so that brings me to an interesting concept. So do you know your target audience? And then what, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I have to ask you, how would you rate your target audience at that level?
I wouldn't necessarily, my target audience isn't necessarily a particular industry, but more a type of person.
Yep.
So I have a clear idea in terms of current client base, of the type of clients that we attract and how that works. So usually limited company directors, 9 times out of 10 they're male, and over 40, and often have more than one business. And so it's usually that they are super busy and they need help and support, and we work with them and do that.
Okay, so you touched upon the demographics. Do you understand the psychographics of your clients?
Maybe not.
So one of the key things is, I mean, for small businesses, any business, when they are trying to understand the target audience, is to understand what is the persona, right? So we talk about the demographics and the psychographics. The demographics, you give me a very broad brush view about, over 40 and multiple businesses, and they're very busy. But psychographics is, what kind of behavioral traits they have, right? What kind of also books they read, who they hang out with, also in terms of what they like, okay? And so you need to understand that part of it, because then that clearly moves into the next part of it. So when you're putting out posts out there, right, when it comes to content marketing, you are using a similar language. So for example, Victoria, if you have to upload, let's just kind of dwell into that particular individual that you spoke about, right? So typically you said over 40, 2 businesses, very busy. Do you know
Yes.
do you know what they like and what they don't like on that?
Not necessarily, but I know what their pain points are.
Okay, tell me more.
In terms of, they're usually overstretched, they often don't have employees, or they would more than often have subcontractors rather than employees. Some do, but and so they're trying to manage their business and do everything, and they haven't got the time, or they're so overwhelmed with the financial side or with the administration side that they just want to focus on growing their business. So by working with us, we're able to enable them to do that and support them and free up the time, and also pass on some of our knowledge and experience, and work with them. Yeah.
So if you understand that if you look at your past clients and understand them at a slightly deeper level, right? So basically they don't have time. What does that mean? They don't have time to spend with their family, and that's why they need that support from you. When you start moving into content marketing, right? Do you do blog posts, anything, or do you post?
I do blog posts, but not consistently.
Okay, so when it comes to if you have to even put social media posts out, the language that you're using would be very specific to that. So recently, I did that for a PR agency where he was targeting, as an example, he also a single one-man band person, and he's just starting his PR agency, so very small, limited budget. When we looked at the demographics and psychographics at a very high level, the clients that he was attracting were millionaires, so basically over 1 million. They generally drive a Tesla car, their kids go to private school, right? Their wife maybe working, maybe a member of a private club, and then they may have a holiday home here, and they may have one in one of the sunny locations out there. Also, they are very conservative. So what they do, and they're very frugal in terms of the spending. They don't, I mean, very few of them wear fancy watches. So he could understand that, how broad it is. Now, for him, because he's a PR person, he could put on blogs at that level. But also for you, when it comes to your social media posts, you could use that language, right? Okay, so you could say something
Yeah.
about Tesla, or something what to do. If it's private education, or they want to send their kids to private, that's where we're talking about. Now, coming on to how much of roughly, I mean, what percentage of your budget is allocated to marketing?
Oh, I have no idea. So my marketing in the past, I have previously sponsored players in local football teams, because my thought was, with that concept, was the exposure that that gave. Sorry, I'm
Right.
just going to mute my phone. So for example, it gave back to the local community, but it also enabled me to connect with the local business community and then bring a wider knowledge of my business to, or in theory, a wider knowledge of my business to a certain demographic of people, where you will find business owners, like you said. So, and yeah, the thought was that by sponsoring a player, it brings that awareness of the business and the brand to people's minds. It didn't quite deliver in the way that I hoped it would, but you know, we all try things once. And yeah, so I did that for a couple of years.
Yes. So there, I think one of the key takeaways maybe for you is to understand if you have not allocated a budget for your marketing side, because guess what, you need, for a small business owner, you need that whole marketing machine, right? Where you get
Oh
your
yeah, so as you can see by my background, I'm a member of BNI. So obviously, to a certain degree, I class that as my marketing, because that's the sort of referral generation and networking. And you know, I see the pros of networking not just in BNI but in other networks as well. And I do a lot of that. So I suppose I don't necessarily attach a monetary value to that, but there is an element of that because of my time that's input in that side of it.
Yeah, so you're trading time in that level at that point. So when it comes also to effective marketing, you need to look at your marketing plan. Okay, even if it's small, networking would be your go-to strategy. Maybe you have another strategy on top of that. So when it comes to networking, you need to actually then look at what are you going to do in networking. So you spoke about BNI, you may talk about other networking, local networking, I would say, events that are there. You may go through that. But the other thing is then you need to look at testing and measuring on the back of that, right? So let's say you're doing a BNI, you put, I think BNI is about $1,000 now, if I'm not mistaken, for a membership, annual membership, plus
It's
your,
about that, yeah.
yeah, plus if you go for in-person meeting, you're spending X amount on your breakfast mornings or whatever. And then you start adding all that up, and then you say, okay, what's my return on investment? Where do I get most of my clients? And sometimes you may see, oh, if I'm doing virtual events, right, through Eventbrite or something like that, or free events, where's that coming from? So you can look at that allocation of your time, okay, and you put that marketing plan, you do a test and measure on the back of that, okay, and see what is actually working, right? You may also look at suddenly, I believe I'm looking at the back here, member file, you're going to highlight my ABM logo at the back of there, right? So if you're mentoring at that level, you're attracting clients through another avenue.
I've just joined the Help to Grow scheme as a volunteer mentor.
Yeah, so that's another avenue where you're trying to also get in, I would say, leads, right? So
It's yeah. So for me, doing the mentoring was about giving back and helping people. I love working with business owners and helping where I can, and it helps develop them, but it also helps develop me as someone who advises and guides my clients. It helps me with that skill set too. So it's a twofold. It's a win-win.
Brilliant, excellent. So you need to look at that. So and then when you talk about your social media, which is I think LinkedIn, you said predominantly on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So how much of your time you're allocating onto LinkedIn, right? What is happening out there? How many clients actually you're attracting? Have you done anything of that sort to actually?
I have to admit I don't measure things. However, I am aware that it is attracting clients. So I had an inquiry recently from someone, and it was because they'd seen, as in last week, I had a one-to-one with someone who's signing on as a client, and it was purely because they've seen my social media posts on LinkedIn and
Mhm.
engaged with it, and and then we've obviously had a one-to-one, and they're happy with what we're offering.
Excellent. Right. So that's one of the key factors, right? So how much of your time you're putting into marketing? Do you have a plan and strategy around that? And then also, what is exactly that return on investment on your time? Okay, on what you're getting out there. So, for example, if do you consistently do it? So another thing about effective marketing, which we always teach our clients, is consistency. There's no point you going onto LinkedIn just once a week or once every 2 days. But if you go consistently, let's say for half an hour every day at a particular time, and you're either putting posts out there, commenting on other people, then that's a massive difference out there. Okay. So we always say that good marketing is consistent marketing. So if you choose whichever channel you want, okay, like BNI is an ideal example, right? It's regimented for a reason. That consistency actually breeds that level of success for BNI.
Yeah.
And no one states that. People hate it. Some people love it, right? So you know that. How long you been a member of BNI?
Just over a year.
All right, so it's fairly new to the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? If you look at BNI as an ideal example of consistent
Oh,
marketing.
100%.
Yeah.
And it works. Otherwise I wouldn't still be there.
And what about again for small businesses? Again, I'm going to just touch on a few things. Do you do email marketing? Do you send out newsletters?
So I used to, and I paused that last year when I had surgery and had time off work. And then I'm actually talking with another action coach at the moment, because I am restarting that, and I've invited him to submit content that then helps introduce him to my clientele.
Yeah. So everything that we spoke in terms of marketing, look at it as a billboard, right? It's like a billboard for VGR business support, right? Whether you are on BNI, you're on social media, okay? Whether you do content marketing, blog, we put on blogs, okay? That's your billboard for your company, okay? And the next one is email marketing. So it's very important you actually treat that as such a massive piece of work for your organization, because that's your building your brand awareness out there.
Yeah.
So one of the key things, I think, what do you think is the underlying theme from where we are, from whichever strategy we use or you use? What do you think is the underlying theme when it comes to effective marketing?
So I say that again.
What is the consistent theme that you see across all this when it comes to effective?
Theme, it's consistency.
Spot on. Yes, it's as simple as that. I mean, and one of the key things also is to grow organically. If you're on a small budget, right? How do you grow organically? You be consistent. You come out there and you do all that good stuff around it.
And that consistency is exactly why I don't necessarily have the growth on Twitter, because I don't spend a huge chunk of time on there. So I schedule consistent postings, but I don't necessarily have that engagement that I should do, because I don't have the time. And where majority of my clientele or potential clientele would be LinkedIn professional, because obviously professionals, it's not that Twitter doesn't have professionals, but it's that whole thing of the turnaround a tweet only being worth 7 seconds. There's not the value to that as there is to necessarily LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah, and this is another typical, I would say, challenge we see with small businesses. They want to be seen on every social media channel, and ours is kind of the other way around. You pick up one, all right, and do it consistently for 3 to 6 months till you're fluent on it. Look at what the test and measure and see what the return on investment is, or maybe take 1 or 2, depending on your availability, right? I do not know how many clients, but don't do it, because you have the software. I forget what the software is called, and it's software like Later and all, you can push across so many platforms, but then you don't have the time to service all those platforms. Right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing where then it kind of, you mirror the same problem that your clients have, right? They have 2 businesses. Your platform. want, and you can't do that. So it's very important to be very selective. There is a lot of that shiny object kind of thing that I want to be seen. Maybe you've started on Threads also, for all I know.
I did create an account on there that when it first opened on the day it launched, and I think I've got 1 or 2 posts, but I haven't really, to be honest, I haven't really looked at it since then. It's that time factor again, isn't it? So for me, my priority is looking after my clients and making sure that they're happy and the work's done for them, and the social media that isn't necessarily going to drive me an income comes second and is more just purely for pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, you're kind of mirroring your client, but I would say just look at the highest concentration of where your future clients are. You've already mentioned it's LinkedIn. So generally service-based business where B2B is generally LinkedIn out there, right? So that's where I would actually focus on. The another thing, so even though small companies have a small budget, right? They can be very effective. The other thing is a referral program. Do you have a referral program? I know BNI is there.
I did have one on my website. It's not open to the public. You can only access it if you have a specific link given to you.
Okay.
But
what's
no. I don't know. I just because we don't, most of our client base doesn't come through our website. So
have you tested and measured it?
Sorry?
Have you tested and measured that?
More that I'm obviously, I measure the back end of my website, measures views and hits and so forth. So I'm aware of how many people are or aren't viewing our website. So, right. And I'm aware obviously of engagement within LinkedIn, for example. So I'm fully aware that there's more engagement on LinkedIn than there is on our website. So I do have content on my website, but like I said, most of my focus is going to be LinkedIn.
Okay, good. So given what we have discussed, what's your kind of go-to kind of approach? Or do you see anything changing in?
Yeah, so I might like not focus as much on some of the other platforms, because I do schedule posts across 3 or 4 different platforms, but I then engage more obviously on, I've mentioned LinkedIn, and on the Facebook there are certain business community groups that I engage in, so I could probably engage a little bit more in those if I had the time. So I'm not going to put pressure on myself to necessarily do that, because that's not where my ideal client base is.
Yeah. The other thing when it comes to, again, consistent marketing, right? What are in your mind, what do you think? How do you build that consistency? How would you go about building consistency when it comes to marketing on a weekly basis, on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. Okay. So have you ever heard of reaction coaches speak about something called a default diary?
No.
All right. So reach out to any of us coaches, will help you on that. A default diary is very simple, right? So one of the key foundations of building consistency across your business is to have a default diary. And the definition and the approach of a default diary is you allocate certain days of the week for certain activities. All right. So for example, let's say for us, coaching generally, if you look at on an average, coaching is generally done from Tuesdays to Thursdays. Okay. So Mondays, we generally talk about marketing and sales as the head coach. And then Fridays, maybe again for seminars, learning and that. Now, even when we look at, let's say for me, initially it was Mondays and Tuesdays for marketing. That's why I'm on this call right now. So this is my marketing day. We allocate, let's say in the morning, so Monday morning, I would write at least 3 blogs or 4 blogs, and that's done. Then the next one I would do is do posts out there, and then maybe LinkedIn at that. So this consistently.
So that for me would be a Friday, because I generally am quieter on a Friday. So I do have a default diary in terms of my work. So obviously certain clients are scheduled in at set times, and then other clients around that, and then networking in there and so forth. But yeah, so it would normally be for me on a Friday that I would focus on social media in terms of content creation and planning ahead.
Brilliant. And the other part of it is when you allocate that, see that nothing comes in the way. So you're saying no. The whole objective of that is that you don't get sidetracked. Obviously, if it's a client, it's a revenue-based avenue, so you have to do that, right? That's a no-brainer of that.
Yeah.
So that's very important. That's that. The other thing is, you can also use something called, when you talk about another way of marketing, is using other people's content. Have
Okay.
you used that? So
I
if
mean,
you,
I share friends, I'll reshare things on behalf of friends to help them. But I don't go, all my content myself is stuff that I've generated. As I mentioned, I've got a background in graphic design from many moons ago. So I love to do the whole sort of Canva and design work myself.
another way of actually bringing, so the whole thing about marketing also for you is to build that credibility for yourself, right? So let's say if you look at certain posts or certain, I would say, influencers in your field, let's say on LinkedIn, they share a post, right? What you can do is you either can comment on their post or you can share their post with your observations. Now that's an easy way to
Yeah.
show your credibility, your acumen for your industry, let's say for bookkeeping, payroll, or whatever, or VA. So that's the other way of doing it. So there you're not spending a lot of time blogging. You're actually
Engaging.
yeah, and that also what happens is that audience which is there on that influencer's account suddenly sees your post if you've commented under that. So they kind of look you up, and then automatically that's how you start growing your profile out there, which would actually lead into more sales eventually. But you have to again test and measure. So these are the different ways to look into how to do effective marketing on a small budget. But one of the key things is, if you look at it from the top down bottom, is build that consistency. Don't go to don't spread yourself too thin. All right, then you'll need your own virtual assistant for yourself, or else it kind of goes back against that. You also look at your different forms of marketing, email marketing, which is easy. Do you send newsletters out?
Well, so that's why I said I used to send them out, and then I stopped last year when I had surgery because I had too much going on and I needed to recover. And then it's something I'm launching again at the end of September.
And the other thing is also you could do this bite-sized content on the emails, something on that level. So sometimes people look at newsletters and they say, "Oh my God, I have to, really think about it." When it comes to when it comes to newsletters, you can always talk about 4 key areas, 3 or 4 key areas, like what I've been doing, whether there's a new team member, testimonials, right? And those all, let's say, in a review, if you can do a recorded review of some of your clients' interviews, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the sort of content I was doing before. But my question for you is frequency, because for me, my intention was to send out a quarterly newsletter because I don't want to bombard people or bother them or them switch off and read, oh yeah, it's another monthly newsletter, or another weekly newsletter. So for me, I'm thinking a quarterly newsletter is enough to give them updates of what's going on and anything that's necessary or relevant in their industry and so forth. But at the same time, not be too much of a pain in the ass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it depends on, you need to test and measure it. All right. So if you're using email marketing, you'll understand the stats to your CRM and the open rate and the engagement around that. Generally, quarterly is a bit too thin.
Okay.
Monthly is, the thing is, one of the key things about a newsletter. What's the kind of key objective of having a newsletter?
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm asking. So if
Oh
I
no, sorry. Yeah. So for me, like, it was engaging further with clients and potential clients and offering added value to them, and and putting out that knowledge. So like I said, maybe specific things to do with the bookkeeping or the VA side of it, or industry things that are coming through, maybe to do with their industries. So it really just, yeah, the idea is that it adds value, not be a pain in the ass.
but also is the visibility part of it.
Yes.
So if you're seen only once every quarter, that's 4 times a year, compared to 12 times a year if you do it monthly, it's much better. Right?
Okay.
So that's one of the key things, especially if you're in a phase where you're trying to attract clients. And your industry is pretty, I would say, when it comes to VAT, HMRC, your tax, and all that stuff, it's pretty, there's a lot of content out there that you can post and
Yes.
you can actually get that engagement. And you need to know typical small business, what are the typical pain points they're facing, right? So you can always post, and that will be widely appreciated. I will do a kind of a 1-minute video short. I don't know whether you have a YouTube channel or whatever. Do
I
that.
don't. I do have a TikTok account for the business, but I've only posted a couple of times to introduce myself. I have yet to do any further content on that.
Yes. So I would say do a newsletter in that case, and that's just I would say restrict yourself rather than spread yourself too thin, right? So imagine if I go to your TikTok account and I'm just suddenly saying, there are only 2 posts, not a great agency, right? So let me find someone else. For those, I would say the next generation entrepreneurs, right? They like TikTok, they like Instagram, Snapchat. So that's where they get they look at their next, I would say, service providers out there. So definitely look at that newsletters from that angle. Definitely keep it monthly, but test and measure everything as you move along, and let the numbers talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm just coming. Any questions for me? We got 2 minutes on the clock.
Not really. You've been very informative, and it's certainly given me something to think about. So thank you for that. Yeah, it certainly gave me thought, and certainly it's maybe refocus my post this session is refocus my thoughts a little bit, because it is easy to get carried away and try and do everything, as you mentioned, and sometimes that's not always a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. And as always, if you guys need any help, speak to me. I mean, you have Nick in your territory, so speak to Nick.
I do. He is lovely.
He is, yeah. And just talk to him. Just ask him to spend about, I think, 30 minutes. You can ask him for 30 minutes through our channel, and he'll sit down with you and help you out there. And you'll see the difference it makes to your business. Karen, I'm pretty we're kind of done with the interview. So anything?
Also, Victoria, don't forget to use No Limits as well as part of your marketing purposes. So
I have done that.
Exactly. So let people know that you are over there. And yeah, definitely all of our coaches are available for you anytime you have any question.
Thank you.
Yeah, Victoria, I'm